After recovering, she sucked his huge cock into her mouth and got as much as she could down her throat. She thought to herself she would get all of him down one day soon. She played with his ball and it did not take long for him to come in her mouth. She was able to take all of it without spilling any. She moved around to his head and asked if he was ready for his test again. He said yes. "Help me with getting my arm on, please." She loved helping him with his arm, either putting it on or taking it off. She usually got very wet. She turned him around and pulled the back of the lounge upright. She put his arm in place and hooked up all of the belts. She then straddled his leg stump facing him and said she had a new test. Gil gave her a questioning look and she took his arm and turned the hooks so they were facing up. She spread her legs wider and said he had to use his hooks to get her off. Jill just grinned. Linda was sitting on her thighs and feet, so she was up in the air a little. She told him to go and he worked to get his arm in position with the hooks between her legs first. Then he used his muscle to bring the arm and hooks up to make contact with her pussy. She jerked and yelled slightly as he first made contact with her. There was enough light that he could see where and what his hooks were doing. He moved his torso back and forth, which moved the hooks through her slit. It did not take long for her head to go back and the moans start. He opened and closed the hooks, varying the stimulation. Linda was trying to hold still but started squirming around. As he was closing the hooks, he caught one of her vague lips between the hooks and was pulling at the same time. The feel and pull sent Linda over and she came big again. Her hands came forward and grabbed his shoulders as she got herself off on them. Gil thought he felt the end of the hooks enter her vagina as she came. Linda's orgasm lasted for some time and she finally pulled herself away from him and fell backwards. The position she was in left her pussy wide open for Gil to look at. Unfortunately, he could not do anything to get to it. Linda pulled herself up and saw what Gil was looking at. Her eyes dropped down and she saw he was hard again. She scooted forward and inserted his cock head into her pussy. After she got him all the way and she rode it, sometimes slow and soft and other times fast and hard. Since Gil had just come a short time earlier, he stayed rock hard, not feeling like he would come again. Sometimes when she was slow he could get a nipple in his mouth, but that would send her into a fast mode again. She came again and pulled herself off his cock and laid back on the lounge. All she could do is look at his big, rock-hard cock with her juices running off and shake her head. Gil finally asked if she was satisfied and she said yes. For 15 or 20 minutes maybe. She told him as horny as she was tonight. Her period must be going to start in a few days. She was very irregular but knew what the signal was. Gil asked her if she was on the pill and she said no, she had her tubes tied. She also said that Dom should start tomorrow. She was regular as hell. Linda asked him how he felt about having two women on the rack at nearly the same time. He laughed and said he would try and keep up with them. She asked if he had any problem having sex during that time and he said none whatsoever. Have you ever done it before? He said yes with his live-in girlfriend. Linda froze and Gil saw her. He said don't worry, when she found out how bad I was injured she took off and I have never heard from her again. Linda relaxed and said she was sorry but unfortunately, it was common. Linda got him in his chair and they headed for the shower. She played with his cock but could not get him to come. She said it was okay, Dom would not be mad at her now. She shaved Jill's ball and cock and the area all around it. He told her that he loved that she and Dom were shaved. Linda got him dried off and into Dom's bed. She joined him and they talked until they heard Dom pull into the garage. Linda kissed him goodnight and told him what a great lover he was. She headed off to her own room. Dom came in a few minutes later and saw that he was awake. He told her he was waiting for her to get home. She asked how the evening had gone and he said fine. She laughed and said I bet. She was taking her scrubs off while talking and standing in front of him. She noticed the sheet tent as she stripped. She stood naked tweaking her nipples and then said she was going for a shower and did he want to join her. He told her they had just gotten out and she said okay, I will be quick then. She headed to the shower, checked to see if she was bleeding yet and was glad she had not started. She came back into the bedroom naked and got in bed with him. She told him how fantastic it was to come home to him and they started kissing. She started to reach for his cock but he asked her to wait, that he would like for her to sit on his face. He wanted to do it very much to thank her for all she had done for him. She said she would be glad to and straddled his face. She pulled her large vaginal lips apart as she lowered herself down to his mouth. He noticed how the pink inside her pussy contrasted with her very light brown skin and thought it was very sexy. Her clit was already sticking out of its hood. As her pussy made contact with his mouth he looked up and saw her fantastic D-cup breasts protruding from her chest. He had never seen a more beautiful view in his life. He concentrated on bringing her lots of pleasure with his mouth and tongue. Her juices tasted fantastic and he got his tongue deep into her vagina. He pulled it back and attacked her clit and Dom started to come and continued as long as he was stimulating her clit. She finally had to pull away as it became so sensitive. She backed herself away from his mouth so she could get her nipples in it. She backed into his hard cock and jumped and yelped. She was surprised it was there. She had expected that Linda had taken all of the hardness out of it tonight. He grinned up at her and said he saved some for her. She nursed him for several minutes with both breasts then reached back and directed his hard into her pussy. She sat up on it and got it all the way in with no problem. Gil reached his arm stump up and she leaned forward just a little so he could rub her nipple. She started ridding him and soon started coming. She never did feel him shoot his warm cum into her but she had to get off him as she was exhausted. She asked if he was okay and he said fine. Gil told her that Linda had gotten him off several times and then he had gotten hard again and she rode him until, like she just did, had to get off of him. He told her that it had happened to him before, after coming several times he was able to get hard but never could come again. He said he was always very happy about it, he could last and his partners could screw it and have themselves as much as they wanted. He did not have to worry about going soft. Dom kissed him and said thanks, that might just be the best fuck she ever had. They both laughed and she snuggled up to him, checked to be sure he had gone soft and they went to sleep. Linda's bedroom was on the other end of the house so they did not even hear her get up and go to work. They were both awake about the same time and Dom asked if he wanted to get up yet. He resisted asking which she meant and just said no. He wanted to just be here in bed with her for a while. She asked if he need to pee and got the urinal for him. She got back in bed and she snuggled in behind him and ran her hand all over him paying special attention to his stumps. She told him she was glad she could wake up to those every morning. After a while, they changed positions, and he used his arm stump to reach over her and rub her breast. They finally got up and she told him she was going to start her period soon. Jill did not act like he knew that and said good, he liked it then. Dom was a little surprised as all other men had avoided her before. He asked her if she was horny and she said you bet. Good, he said, so am I. She helped Gil get into his chair and did not dress him. She stayed naked also. She did not offer to put his arm on either. Jill just smiled to himself knowing she liked to see his amputations and take care of him. While they were in the bathroom she put a Kotex and belt on. He told her how sexy she looked like that, especially the white contrasting with her beautiful brown skin.